semester 20 of the certificate course. Just a second. Today we have with us Dr. Vaishali Kolhe. She is working as associate professor and former chairperson of the Center for Disability Studies and Action, School of Social Work at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai campus. She joined TISS in June 2002 as assistant professor in the Department of Medical and Psychiatric Social Work, which is currently named as Center for Health and Mental Health. And later she shifted to the newly developed Center for Disability Studies and Action in June 2006. She is currently engaged in two field actions: research initiatives with participatory pedagogy of people-centered development and disability inclusion programs at universities. Today, she'll be sharing her views on social inclusion of persons with disabilities. We are honored to have you here with us, ma'am. Before handing over the platform to you, I'd like to inform you that I'll be hosting and anchoring today's class and will also be helping you with the chat box. The platform is now all yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and it's an honor and privilege to be here today in the course organized by NCPEDP, I think, which is need for the hour in terms of sensitizing each and every professional and student in the area of disability and inclusion. So today the topic which I have been told to cover is social participation and social inclusion of persons with disability. So as I do not know about the target audience over here, but Akshay told me that a couple of you are lawyers and some of you are social scientists and working in different diverse sectors. So, looking at social inclusion of persons with disabilities, and the concept of social inclusion is defined as the participation, maximizing the participation of persons with disability in every arena and sphere of life, be it is family, participation within the family, participation within the neighborhood, participation within the community, participation within the various spectrums of life like education, health, livelihood, all the sectors of life, and how this participation is maximized towards empowering people with disabilities and including people with disabilities in every sphere of life. So when I say empowering people with disability, what do I mean? I mean that it means the decision making, how the participation is fruitful through enhancing and facilitating the decision making of people with disability in every spheres of life. I can quote few examples of day-to-day lives that usually we see in families. Whenever the child is born with disability, the parent, feels very, very shocked and bewildered with the child is born with disability. And this results into searching for a miracle cure for the child. And the parent hunt from post to pillar, they run in order to make the child, able-bodied, so-called able-bodied and non-disabled. I have seen parents suffering throughout India, be it rural India, be it urban India, be it elite classes. They are hunting and curing miracle cure for their child with disability because of the fact that they have not accepted the child with disability, and it's a very, very shocking period for them or phase for them in terms of having a child with disability. And there are 5 phases which they go through when the child is born with disability. Especially this is a part of family-centered practice. So first phase is few hours to few days, which is basically called as a shock stage or a shock and bewilderment stage, which lasts for around few hours to few days, and followed by the second stage is the recognition stage in terms of whether the child is having some kind of a disability, and then what to do about it, or just getting settled with the kind of a disabling condition, followed by the third stage where the family, it's called reconstruction stage, where the family is going through bargaining with the fact that the child is having disability and they have to do something about it. Followed by the final constructive fourth stage is a constructive stage, or a constructive action stage, where the family actually deals with it and go for therapies and interventions and find out a solution for them, for their child, and see to it that and the last stage is the resilience stage, where the family is accepting the fact that there is a disability, and they themselves then start working for other parents and other family members and other similar kind of experiences, and they get together, formulate an organization, and they fight for their own rights collectively. So, this is what the various kinds of stages of a family going through a child with disability. And I'm linking this with the social participation and social inclusion. So imagine if the social inclusion is not within the unit of the family as a building block of society. Now, when you say family, it's a basic unit of society, which is like a building block of any society. And if it is disability is not included within the main building block of a society, which is a family as an institution and a social institution of a society, then how do you expect the society will accept that? We talk about big things like social model, medical model, human rights model, but then what happens at the end of the day? You can actually confirm that with the kind of experiences of people with disability and their families, what they go through. This happens not only in India, but as a global phenomena. If it is, if the disability is not accepted, then this is what the families goes through. And every stage, even if the laws and policies are made, but if they're not implemented according to the needs of the persons with disability, then the participation and all these kinds of engagement and acceptance becomes a very long a goal for us to achieve. So coming back to the social participation, what I don't know about all of you in terms of which spectrum you belong to, but then I just want to know that I would like to cover 2-3 things. You all are working, you all must know about, how disability participation can take place in the 3-tier system, which is in panchayat system, or in a system, in a governance system, so that you are able to make a difference and improvise the social participation and social inclusion of persons with disability. What do you say? If do you think I can cover that? So I would like to start with something which Akshay was mentioning, that see, you have studied the law, you've studied the medical model, social model, you've studied some bits of programs and schemes, but then how do you actually implement these schemes at a rural and urban level through the governance mechanism? So I thought, as a social scientist and also as a lawyer, how do you able to implement these local governance system? So I thought that let me just cover this part, and then I will also cover the human rights perspective to some extent in context of social inclusion. Because at the end of the day, what is important is the social inclusion of persons with disability, which means that the person should be able to participate, and the person should be able to socially participate with an empowering approach, where the society gives them, allow them in the decision-making process to make schemes, policies, programs for them. Because if that is what the UNCRPD also says, that nothing about us without us, unless their voices are included in the mainstream, then only they can be included as a whole, as a very important identity of the society. You know, one of the very important part, the disability is thought to be special. You know, it's something very, very special. Bodily, it's special. You know, attitudinally, it's special. Uh, Everything is special. But let me tell you, there is no difference between disabled and non-disabled. They can do exactly what a non-disabled can. It is the way the ableist, it is the way the society's framework is built. If you imagine a house which is built with bricks, okay, now these bricks are, you know, of one shape, and you make the house using these bricks, and all these bricks of the same size, same shape, and you build the entire house. This is what is the society is all about, and it is made with a lens that everybody, you know, is maybe having the same requirement, same functioning, same way of doing things, but it is not correct. Because each, even if you imagine yourself, if you see your photograph, how you were as a child and how you become as an adult, the two photographs are different. When you become old, you know, your photograph will be different. So we all are changing every single day as a dynamic our developmental across the lifespan. Similarly, persons with disability are also having having requirements of their own. So you cannot say it's special. It's their requirement. As simple as that. We cannot call it, okay, they are special. You know, they are just like, as a, you have to count them as a whole, as a personhood, as a whole, as a person who is empowered, who can do everything and anything in life if the things are given to him or her, or as a third gender. You know, they can do everything under the sun. So there's no difference between disabled and disabled, non-disabled. The wall is made by us meaning the people who are non-disabled. We have constructed the world forgetting the person with disability, forgetting everyone who may be vulnerable. So what we have done is we have not remembered the vulnerability of people. We have not taken into the consideration or counted the people who are at margins. We have thought that, okay, these, you know, in the center, we have the power and we have all the resources and everything is there and we can enjoy life. What happens to the people at margins? Who will take them in? So that is a larger question we need to ask to the system today, in context of disability inclusion, in context of social participation, that we people have to think about a society which is an inclusive society, and people at the margins, we have to give hands and through opportunities, through systems, through convergence of various schemes, so that they come slowly to the center and enjoy the same resources and facilities and distribution of resources like any other person. So these walls between disabled and non-disabled is created through various kinds of hierarchies and oppressive structures of our society. And these are coming from the intergenerational transfer of values, what we have learned throughout our childhood, throughout our in books. And nobody has taught us that that people at margins can nobody has taught us in this, and nobody has actually told us that this is possible, that inclusion is operationalizing inclusion is possible. People have demonstrated, but they have not, it has not reached to us in our action. So our, even if you intellectualize that you can do so many things, but what happens to your actions? There's a difference between what you intellectualize and what actions you do. So the gap between our intellectualization of rights model and all these big things has to be translated into action through our basic routine or basic baby steps, I would say, or smaller steps in our lives, so that we become a sensitive individual and we are able to give hands, or we are able to share our resources with people at margins. And we promote the whole idea of personhood, by inclusion of people at margins. So it's very important for all of us as professionals or as a budding professional in the sector of disability studies or disability inclusion, that how do we take them in, how do we increase their participation? How do we take them into the system, So there is a wall between disabled, non-disabled. So, and these boundaries of this wall are actually made by the social construction of disability, I would say. Now, what is the social construction of disability? It means the notion of disability.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you could be a little bit louder, if it's possible at all.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm missing something. But you're talking fairly quickly, which is fine. But if I don't hear you, then I have a problem.
That's why I think, yeah. Okay. So I will talk a little louder. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So largely, these boundaries which are being constructed by the society between disabled and non-disabled. Now, these boundaries, it's very, these boundaries are boundaries of identity. Okay. Now, identity, which is based on class, caste, religion, the status which you belong to, the class, the language you speak, the way you dress, the way you, the way you look, the, in terms of physical appearance, the color of your skin, the kind of resources you have in your life, or the kind of profession you are taking up. So all these boundaries are there in the society, which basically based on the whole structure of power. And there are two kind of, and the structure of power, which is called as, which is basically a phenomena of oppression. So am I going okay? Yeah. So this is the
Yes, ma'am. All good.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. So the structure of power, is basically, if you want to just understand the structure of power, you can just look at the two sides of the power. One is the powerful, which is oppressor, and the one is powerless, who is oppressed. Okay. And the pedagogy of power and powerful and powerless goes on and on through generation and generation because of the intergenerational transfer of values which are inculcated in us, and we endorse them as a culture, and we practice them unknowingly as an unwritten rule. There can be one unwritten rule for women. There is a movie called Satya At Gharat, meaning before 7 o'clock, you have to be inside the house. So, or for the children also, you are supposed to not argue with adults, और जो बड़े बोल रहे हैं बड़ों की बात सुननी है आपको, किसी के साथ argument नहीं करना. So all these are but if you look at today's kids, they argue for each and everything you say to them, and they have an answer to it. Why? Because of the boom of information to them through Google, through all kind of things, and Google becoming a technology for them, as a teacher for them to know everything, and they know before you tell them anything. So the point I'm making over here is, if the kids can be so empowered today and argue with the adults about all the explanations and the logic, imagine the same thing happens with any person, whoever is at margin. And if you give them all the resources, they will be equipped and empowered to fight back, and they will be, able to take care of themselves. So I'm giving this a very layperson's example to you of children, today's children, including my son, because if I tell them, they have an answer, and I feel so frustrated if they answer back and say that they are not listening to me, and I'm supposed to with having the same kind of mindset that what my parents did to me and I also obeyed them, but the same generation values may not be applicable to the next generation. So the point I'm making, coming back to the social inclusion and boundaries of social inclusion, is all about why participation is restricted of people with disabilities, because of the structure of power and power hierarchies have across their lives. And these power hierarchies are multi-layered, and they are endorsed in the fabric of culture as value system, and and everyone follows that without questioning it. So that's what that is basically the example I gave you about the miracle cure. Parents search for their child with disability because nobody has told them that this child can be the way he is or she is, or as a third gender she can exist as her own, and if you give all the resources to her, she can be empowered and she can do everything whatever the non-disabled does. So, so largely coming back to the structure of power, which is also called as structure of oppression, which has two parts. One is powerful and the second one is powerless. So what happens is the powerful always remain at the power center of power, and they always want to capture the power, and the powerless always at the oppressee level. So if you imagine disabled are powerless, who are living with that condition in their lives throughout, and non-disabled are the powerful, oppressors or powerful. I'm not saying every non-disabled is oppressor, but I'm just saying a basic, I would say, Kisan or Zamidar. A Kisan is powerless, and Zamidar is somebody who is, who holds the land of the, our farming system is powerful. So, so we have come across all these kind of system in rural areas, and we found that the powerful always see to it that the powerless always in the powerless situation, and this is what this entire psyche or mental psyche, which do not allow others to grow, which do not allow the people who are powerless to grow. And that is why constitutionally we have created various kinds of subcategories of caste, subcategory of class, so that, like, for example, we have created socio-economically disadvantaged group, which includes disabled, transgenders, all kind of people with scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or minorities. So these are all people at margins who do not get the equal resources as everyone gets. But on the contrary, the other one is the powerful, who is the government or Zamindar or whoever you call it. They having all the resources with them. And and that is what they practice. So the idea of development practice is you sensitize the powerful people that, boss, they require school, they require education, they require medicine, they require treatment. You have to develop the rural India. You have to give some resources to them so that they are able to survive their lives and become, able to survive and able to live a good life. So you sensitize the powerful people in such a way so that the powerful become mellow down, and they take responsibility and take care. At the same time, you work with the powerless, and you see to it that the resources, the distribution, equal distribution of resources to them through public distribution of food, resources, ration, pani, makan, jo bhi hai. So all that you give it to them so that they are able to take care of their lives, and they are able to survive on their own. So you work with both the system, powerful, oppressors, to allow them to lower down their power and understand them and things like that. I'll just give you a quick example of, we were working in Dharavi, which is which is the biggest slum in Asia. And it was, we were working with child laborers in 2003, back so many years back. And in 2003, when we were entering into this karkhanas, which was like 10 by 10, and around 15, 20 children are sitting and doing zari work. And the zari work were done by these children, child laborers, and they were small kids, like must be 12, 14, and they were doing like this zari work, I asked the karkhana worker how long they're doing this work. So they said, ma'am, 10 ghante se 12 ghante kaam karte hain ye. And then when I asked the child laborer, he said, madam, hum to sir raat ko 4 ghanta hi sote hain. So actually it was not 10 to 12 hours, but it was 14 hours. These kids were working every single day. And then we were working with them regarding, and they allowed us because because we worked with the karkhana maliks, and we said that, and we got to know that everyone is karkhana malik. Now this karkhana malik, when he was a child laborer. He was, they were telling us, we had a focus group discussion, and we got to know that this karkhana maliks were child laborers, and they were sold for 3,000, 4,000 by the family to Mumbai, to Mumbai and to this karkhana zari worker. And they used to, and at that time they were all coming from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and very huge poverty. So they used to send back the money to the family of 500 rupees or something like that. And that's how this tradition that, you sell these kids to karkhana in Dharavi, and they will all be sending you at least 500 rupees back so that they can earn their own livelihood. So we were working with this oppressor group of karkhana maliks who were child laborers before. So they understand the pain of child laborers. So when they understand the pain, what they have gone through should not happen to these children. So they understood the point that yes, it's inhuman treatment, and they should give some concession to them so that their work. So what we promoted, the work should be good. If you think the children are working for so many hours, they will fall ill, then your money to give them medicines, treatment will increase, and it will affect your business. So better to maintain 10 hours of work so that they are able to, or 8 hours of work, allow them 2 hours of education so that वो पढ़ लिख लेंगे तो आप ही को मदद करेंगे आपका business बढ़ाने में. So that's how. And then they were given free of cost health, wherever they were fallen ill. So there was a health treatment, there was education, and there was, some kind of a negotiation with the karkhana malik to reduce the working hours to 10 hours or lesser than that, 8 hours. And they agreed. And we worked for 2 years with them. What I'm trying to say over here, there's these boundaries which are there between oppressor and oppressed. You have to keep on reducing. ये जो gap है oppressor oppressive इतना बड़ा gap, इसको reduce करने के लिए oppressor के साथ काम करना पड़ेगा ताकि उसका need that person will come down and understand the people. And oppressive child laborers, you educate them so that the gap between oppressor and oppressee, the power structure become reduced because where you have empowered the powerless to reach at the stage of equilibrium or some kind of a transformation or social transformation, so that tomorrow whatever has happened to them should not be repeated in future, and they live a healthy life. So why I give you this example only in the context of oppression and the concept of oppression, that how do you if you look at the Pedagogy of the Oppressed book, very famous by Paul Fredo, that it talks about, it's very fascinating book to understand that how the oppression is basically a psychological process. It's not an economic process, but it's a psychological process, and how one can actually break this psychological process from the mindsets of powerful to understand the powerless, because we have to have an approach that, and we have to tell them that it is going to be beneficial for the entire society as a whole, and it will also benefit them as powerful. It will increase their business, it will increase a good environment a harmony in the environment without any conflict. But, so this is the kind of various kinds of practices and pedagogies are adopted in the development practice. When you work at a grassroots level, you work with all kind of people in order to sensitize them and make them understand that, yes, there is a need to work with powerless. There's a need to work with people with disabilities. There's a need to work with people who are at margins. So, so it's very, very essential for all of us to understand that one can only do this through the social inclusion, which is basically through increasing the participation of the people. So today, in today's class, we'll try and discuss that how the social participation can be improvised at a micro level, at a meso level, and at a macro level. Okay, so micro level, social inclusion at micro level means work, this is coming from the ecological perspective of Brenfriend-Brunner's model, which is a famous social scientist who coined the ecological theory that every individual, who lives in a family as a unit of society is called as ontogenic self. They called it as ontogenic self. And he said that the relationship, what the person maintains within the family as a unit of the ecological perspectives become a fundamental for the development of that person, that individual. And then he called it as a microsystem. Okay. And he called it as a system. And he said that if the individual, whatever the individual does, it affects the entire family as a unit. And whatever family does, it affects the individual on the contrary. So whatever you do as an individual in your life, it affects your family. And whatever happens within your family affects the individual as a whole, as a system. So this is what is a microsystem. So each one of us are living in our own families, and you must have realized that if somebody in the family is ill, or somebody in the family is having disability, or somebody in your family is having any kind of like COVID scenario also, or a catastrophe or disaster, it affects the entire family. Because it changes the roles and responsibilities, it changes the leadership of the family, it changes the rules of the family, it changes the dynamics of the family as a whole, and it changes the relationship and adaptability of the family. So this he talks about at a micro system or a micro level, where an individual at individual, how the individual is affected within the family as a unit. So so talking about disability inclusion at a micro level means that how an individual is participating within the family as a unit at a micro level, or as a micro system. Which basically means relationships, which basically means acceptance, which basically means adaptability, which basically means the decision making. It also means the structure of the family and the interaction of the family with each other as a dynamics of the family. Okay, so in short, in summarized, how the family as a structure and family as a system. Okay, so how social inclusion is important in families as a families at a micro system or micro level. Okay, the second part is social inclusion within the community, or and it is called as, second part is called as mesosystem, social inclusion within the mesosystem. So it basically means that how the whole microsystem is expanded to school, to college, to police station, to hospital, to panchayat system, to government office, to church, to friends, extended family members, to neighborhood, to larger community in which the person exists. how a person is accepted or included within the meso system or a community system. And largely, you must have heard that community-based rehabilitation, is practiced while working with working in the communities, where community-based rehabilitation is one of the way to practice, but that is a very old WHO model of 1980s, which is still being practiced, but it is the old model was practiced with the rehabilitation lens of a medical model that you have to correct the body of the individual. But in the current time, it is practiced with the inclusion lens, which is that society has to change. The community has to change for inclusion of people with disability. The society has to take responsibility to make the roads disabled friendly, make the infrastructure disabled friendly, the police station, the hospitals, the public buildings, the highways, the theaters, the malls, the drinking water facilities, the housing, the voting system, the panchayat systems, the Anganwadis, the PHCs, all this, the bus system, the bus services, the transportation, everything has to be disabled friendly and inclusive for people with disability. It's not about treatment. It's about creating a system, rediscovering a system. And I'm coming back to the example of house I gave you, that you build the bricks, you take the bricks and make the house, and all the bricks are of the same size, same shape. Imagine if few bricks are circle shaped, few bricks are triangular shaped, few bricks are hexagon, few bricks are pentagon, and few bricks are cylindrical. So what if some bricks are like that? Why can't we build a house by taking this cylinder shape as cylinder shape, taking the star shape as star shape, taking the square as square, taking the circle bricks as circle bricks, taking the triangular bricks as triangular bricks? Why can't we do that? क्योंकि किसी ने बताया ही नहीं आज तक, है ना, किसी ने सिखाया ही नहीं, और हमें आदत है ना, थोड़ा सा भी कुछ गलत हो जाएगा किसी का तो हम पहले बोलते तुमने गलत किया. So this is the same psychology, that whenever somebody is doing something different, you pinpoint that the person that you are doing something which is not really correct, and you better check it out. And why I give you this example, because all the more it's important that these bricks can be different, and if you accept these bricks as they are and build the house, so house is the same, it will have the same function, no, in terms of you're living in the house, you're drinking water, you're eating, you are living, you're surviving, you are sleeping, you are enjoying in the house as your own house, and it's my own house without any barriers. And if this house is having a ramp, is universally designed, it's nicely done, it has everything around it, then it is inclusive house. And this is the same thing, it's an inclusive community. It can be the same thing in terms of inclusion. And that is what, why I gave you the example of house, because there is a need to make structural amendments, or you have to change. If you have to want to practice inclusion, you have to make structural augmentations in the system itself. जो स्क्वायर है वो स्क्वायर है, जो ट्रायंगल है वो ट्रायंगल है, जो सर्कल है वो सर्कल है, जो रेक्टेंगल है रेक्टेंगल है. आप सबको स्क्वायर बना देंगे, बोलेंगे ये स्क्वायर ही बनना है. जो ट्रायंगल होगा वो क्या बोलेगा, अरे मुझे प्लीज काट के यहाँ वहां से काट के मुझे स्क्वायर बनाओ. ये कहाँ तक लाजमी है, So all these, so that is what disabled, we are teaching the person with disability to become able-bodied, because they have to survive, because they have to exist, they have to perform, they have to participate. But what I'm trying to say, that you can develop them as able-bodied, but at the same time, do not stigmatize them. You see, do not give them, a different kind of a treatment to them. Treat them equally and let them be included into the same system. As everyone is playing in the playground, similarly, the children with disability can also play in the playground. If everybody is wearing the clothes like this, if a person on a wheelchair, how he will wear the same clothes, tell me? So from where he will buy the clothes? Huh? Have you ever thought about it? So the point is, if you don't think about inclusion from every lens of everyday life, then how will you practice inclusion? So that is what the example of house I gave you. There is a need to do a structural changes in the system in order to break all kind of barriers around the mindset of people and tell them square is square, triangle is triangle, circle is circle, and all the bricks are bricks. So as every bricks exists, the circle brick also exists, the triangle bricks also exist. If then you say no, triangles ko nikalo bhai, thodi toot gayi, isko nikalo, isko yahan karo, isko wo karo. So there's no point in excluding people with some kind of, which may have certain kinds of biological differences, some structural differences. But if you make space for them, include them in the shape as they are. Don't create you're not creating a separate thing. You're just making some kind of a system within the entire mainstream. So this is so that they are included into the system. And you're not building any strategy. You're accepting them as they are naturally, without any effort, without any, I would say, natural effort. You are welcoming them as you welcome everyone. You greet the new person, you greet, similarly, you're greeting them, in the same way. In our culture, in our societal culture, in the society in which we live, we are being taught we have to talk to everybody differently, and we practice pragmatism. We are very practical people, and we are very pragmatic people. What do we do? If the boss comes, we talk differently. If the teacher comes, we talk differently. If a person who's cleaning our house comes, we talk differently. If the person in the market, we talk differently. We bargain with them. We talk to everyone with a different, I would say, mindset, or differently. I happened to meet somebody from Finland, and the person, she was in my institute, and she greeted me by bowing her head, as and she's like that. She was greeting everyone like that, and she greeted me also like that. So I said, I also greeted her like this, by bowing my head down, and then to her with this, like, respecting the person. And she said that in our country, we greet everyone like this, whether it's a prime minister, or it's a person sweeping on the floor, or a person who is a carpenter, or a person who is coming to clean our house. We greet and treat everyone with the same symbol. And this is what is a social inclusion, that you have included in your mindset everyone as a one individual, a human personhood, irrespective of his power structure. You see? So this is what you need to inculcate in your life when you are talking to people, when you're greeting people, when you are interacting with them. Stay in the head that prime minister is prime minister, or president is president. Yes, they are extremely respectable positions and honorable members of our country who are governing the entire country. But the point is that, about in context of social inclusion, is this inclusion happens in the mindset. So when you want to practice social inclusion, in the society with everyone. Forget about disability. With everyone, you are including them into the same frame, right? With the same value system of equality, of humbleness, of compassion, or generosity, or with the value of justice. You are including them by respecting them in a as human being. You may not, I'm not saying you should bore everyone, but I'm just saying that you can mentally practice everyone with the sensitive lens, with the sensitive approach, so that you are being humble to everyone. So which is not very tough, which is not very difficult. So if you want to practice social inclusion, you just keep that respect and dignity to each and every individual, and you see to it that you basically give basic dignified behavior to everyone around you. So coming back to the lecture today is I wanted to throw some light on panchayatiraj as a system. And when you work in suppose you're all working, say, in the in your fellowship program, or you're working in any kind of a program. So how you can actually work at a district level, because district become a very important administrative structure of any particular state. And if you learned to practice or understand the governance structure of any particular district, then you are able to work at the community level and bring about all kind of changes in the system. So the third level, I will come to that, and before that I want to explain the third level is you have expanded to the community now, from micro system to meso system. The last system you've expanded to the macro system, which is macro system is about the laws, policies, programs, the schemes, and whatever is, as a citizen he is entitled to get the provisions. For example, COVID vaccination is one of the need for the hour. So how COVID vaccination was not given to the people with disability, and people with disability went to all across in the auto rickshaw and different their transportation. They've gone to all these vaccination sites for vaccination, and they were told you are not registered. So how can you get the vaccination? Then they said that we have tried to register, but the CAPTCHA is not accessible. So what to do? So they filed a case in the High Court and won the court, a High Court judgment. And in the Maharashtra, it was told to them that the vaccination should happen near their house. And if it is not at home, they can, people should reach to their houses and do the vaccination. If this is not possible, then create that kind of a system where the vaccination at home can be delivered to them. So the point is that if you have not practiced social inclusion, or not, the vaccination in India for COVID-19 is not inclusive, then you have no other way to get the justice but to file a case in the High Court or any particular court to get that kind of safety from COVID-19 by these kinds of interventions, which is done by the court as a final option left to the person with disability to be safe in the COVID-19 period, in the first wave and the second wave. So the Supreme Court judgment also came in terms of how this vaccination has to be treated in an urgency, and how this vaccination is required for people with disability, and it has to be inclusive in nature, and all the CAPTCHAs should be done disabled friendly, and the technology should be savvy to persons with disability, and all kind of amendments were done by the the health systems in order to include persons with disability. And this is what is a social inclusion. So when the social inclusion doesn't happen, people with disabilities have gone to, as you know, there are three pillars of justice. Now, the first pillar is the Constitution of India. Okay. which gives us justice, right? The second pillar is the governance or the government who implements the constitutional frameworks in the country. And if the government is not giving the services to you in the lens of justice, then the third one is left is the judiciary. Third pillar of justice is judiciary. Now, this was told to me by Justice A.K. Sikri in a conference that this is how the three pillars of justice work. And the Constitution is aimed to give justice to every citizen of its country. And the government has to, the second pillar is the government has to implement, operationalize the constitutional norms and guidelines and rules in every sector of the society, be it education, employment, every sector. And the third one is the judiciary, which only comes when there is a dispute between the government and the individual. So this has been resolved by the judiciary. There's a last option left to the persons who do not get the justice. So coming back to the point is the macro system and the macro level interventions. It's very important that how the various schemes and programs, I gave you the example of vaccination, the Supreme Court judgment, the High Court judgment, because filed by the people with disability themselves, and see to it that the vaccination system is accessible to them. And they are able to equally participate in the vaccination process. So the high time social inclusion is practiced in the vaccination period. And there was also guidelines, inclusive disaster guidelines came in terms of quarantine and lockdown. I think NCPEDP also worked to the lockdown guidelines and they also released. So the point is, in the lockdown process, what happened to people with disabilities? Everybody's were locked down. So without any resources, external sources, without any opportunities, without any facilities, how the persons with disability will function? There was a ration shops at the government level and they were giving free ration, but people with disability cannot even travel to the ration shop and the government institution because they require money, they require resources, they require accessible transport to come to that location to get that ration. So how do you expect them to get, all kinds of services? And that is why social inclusion becomes fundamental to operationalize all the laws, policies, programs, systems in place so that they are able to enjoy the same rights as any other person. So coming back, so micro, meso, macro. So these are the three levels of social inclusion. So today I love this topic, panchayatiraj, because when you say panchayatiraj, it's the Gandhian thought which said that every village at the end of the day should be empowered, and village should have their own local governance mechanism so that they are empowered themselves and they are self-sustainable. And all the powers of governance also should be in the hands of the village and panchayat so that they are able to enjoy the same rights and same functions as any other institution of governance. So this is a beauty of panchayatiraj, where they, where the local governance system is in India is being practiced, is being operationalized as a mini parliament. So all panchayatiraj system is like a mini parliament. They have their own power, they have own funds, they have own functions. They can actually work like a parliament. And the 73rd amendments in the constitution actually gave that power to them. There is also, so as a panchayatiraj system, so it, it's basically called as, panchayatiraj system functions as a decentralized process. So when you say centralized, it's a holding of power. When you say decentralized, you have distributed the power horizontally and vertically. So all over the world, the right of people with disabilities, govern themselves to be, they have faced struggles in their lives, and all these struggles actually were exercised through the governance and through the democratic dialogue. And India fight against the imperial rule as an important journey in the democratic process. And it is a major achievement of India to develop a democratic governance process through decentralized process, through panchayatiraj system. So Mahatma Gandhi realized this goal in their lives, that every individual, every village should be a powerful village, and they should have the local governance mechanism so that they are able to develop all the institutions around them and able to function as an independent body. So the institution of local governance in rural areas of India are referred to as panchayats. So coming back to the decentralized process, as I told you, Gandhiji's thought that it is panchayat as an institution of relevance, and it is like a mini parliament. It functions like any other parliament and able to operationalize all schemes, programs. Imagine they get, say, 5 crore, and they can spend that 5 crore for building houses, for building roads, building wells, building drinking water facilities, hand pumps, able to build water management, water harvesting methods, deforestation, all kind of systems they can maintain. We did a study with in a particular village, in a particular district of Maharashtra, and we through an NGO, and we worked with it was a district with 70 villages. And in 70 villages, we thought we cannot go to all the 70 villages. So we selected 7 villages. So each village was having a system. We selected one Dalit village with the Dalit population. The second village, we selected all the disabled village, where high concentration of people with disability. Then we selected more powerfully, politically very relevant village, which was powerful, and which got the government, Prime Minister award that it's the best village. Then, so more powerful village in terms of oppressee lens. Then we selected a gender, where there's a more woman power in the village. So one gender perspective. Then the other village we selected from the I would say education and unemployment as a lot of issues in that village. Then we selected so like that we selected various thematic areas like Dalit village, then tribal village, then most unemployment where exists that village, then most powerful village, then the gender based component. Then so like that we selected and the best village in terms of the role model where all the schemes are implemented properly. As so we did a study, and what we found out that what is more important is that when you talk about development, all the villagers, they asked me, madam, आप ये village को adopt करने वाले हैं क्या? आप हमारे लिए ये करने वाले हैं क्या? So nobody actually thinks that it is, one as an education, one can actually empower a village. So we included all these villages, and we developed a village development plan. We developed an entire, within the Gram Sabha, we discussed with them, and we developed a village development plan for them in terms of what people want at the end of the day. So when we were going there, and we practiced convergence, what we did is we called all the meeting of all the government officials, like education, disaster, then roads, then home, the Indira Gandhi Awas Yojana, and all kind of officers. And we told them where disability fits in, you tell us. And we try to fit disability in their relevant schemes, and we prepared a report, and in 2013 I submitted this report to that NGO. It was a year level study, and we try to study all kind of health sector, education sector, the livelihood sector, and then how convergence can take place in terms of all the schemes for persons with disability. So this is what, so it was all about decentralized process. I gave you the example because I wanted to share with you that how the decentralized process can be practiced. If you look at the post-independence initiatives, so this is history actually. The Balwant Mehta committee was the one which basically talked about the panchayat as a system and panchayatiraj as a system in 1957. And they worked towards making the panchayat as a legal systems and as a mini parliament who is able to empower, implement all the schemes in the village level. So why I'm talking a social inclusion from the rural context and the panchayatiraj system context, because I want you to understand that it has three Fs, three functions of panchayatiraj system. So one is F, functions, second is functionaries, and third is finances. So in Article 243G of the Constitution states that required to devolve adequate powers and responsibilities to Panchayati-Raj institutions in order to make them effective institutions of local self-governance. So a highlight of constitutional amendment was given in terms of three Fs. Recently, I heard that the politicians were telling that they're aiming to strengthen all the panchayat systems, and they are suddenly woke up with all these farmers agitation and everything, that they have to now focus on eradication of poverty after increasing all the budgets, all the जैसे महंगाई की तो बहुत अभी हो गई है, तो after महंगाई बढ़ाने के बाद अचानक से they thought about this panchayat as a system, which is not very surprising. But the point is that how you as a professional have to understand that panchayat, you have to also learn to work at a, now why I'm teaching you about the panchayat system, because this will help you to work at a micro level with individuals and families, and it will also help you to work with the meso level in terms of the community as a whole, and it will also help you to work with the systems, like how they can operationalize the system at district level. So it's very, very essential that how the state level legislatures have to be empowered to authorize panchayats as to collect and appropriate taxes, and how panchayat also becomes an important part of finance. As I told you, functions, functionaries, and finances. So this panchayat basically, they have the financial power to allocate the budget for housing, allocate the budget for education, allocate the budget for health, educate the budget for NRLM and other kind of programs. And they organize Gram Sabhas. Have you heard of Gram Sabha? Anyone? Gram Sabha. Preeti, have you heard of Gram Sabha? Gram Sabha. Have anyone heard about Devanshi? Have you heard of Gram Sabha? Whatever
Yes,
name.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We have heard of Gram Sabha.
What did you hear about Gram Sabha?
Ma'am, I think it includes all the members of the village above the age of 18 who are eligible to vote.
Yeah, perfect. So this is what is the Gram Sabha, and usually the three-tier system talks about the panchayat, and what do they do is they organize Gram Sabha, and they discuss every issue of panchayat in the Gram Sabha, and they see to it that all the issues are discussed, but they will do whatever they want to do, but so I'm in a class. Huh? So sorry, there was someone. So in the three-tier system, that it is constitutes of district panchayat, block panchayat, and the gram panchayat, which is the least, the bottomest of the bottom. And then in the states, so in the states, every 25 lakhs of population, or states less than the population, which maybe two-tier system. So they will have this three-tier system of Gram Panchayat, which is headed by Sarpanch or Mukhya, and the block Panchayat is basically Sabhapati, And the district panchayat is basically the sabha, Sabhadipati means the bigger Sabhapati in terms of which may be leader of the group Gram Panchayats. So all these panchayats basically work as a self-governance mechanisms, as I told you, mini panchayats, mini parliaments, in terms of implementing the government and the national, implementing the government regulations and implement all the schemes of the government. And the one of the very important part of this, that every year they get the budget. So if you tap every district and able to implement and there is a 3% budget also in every district, which is devoted to the disability. So this is one of the biggest question of every MP and every local politician, that they want to capture this 3% budget and say, ha ha, hum log bahut kaam karenge. But they don't know that they don't have a power to capture it. Actually, this is lies with I think the district collector and the district CEO of the Zilla Parishad, and you are able to capture this and able to operationalize this through the CEO, and you can actually ask through RTI and other things to find out how this 3% budget is materialized. Then the panchayat, so this is what is the three-tier system which I wanted to highlight, and I'm sure you must. Are you aware about all of these, guys? Or no? पहली बार सुन रहे हैं आप? 73rd Amendment and the three-tier system in Panchayat. Are you aware about all these concepts? Say yes or no, that's all.
Ma'am, most of us would know about it.
Okay, right. Who is this? Devanshi.
Yes, ma'am.
Devanshi. So, right. So the whole idea of discussion in terms of the three-tier system, that how the social inclusion has to be practiced in context of the three-tier system, and you can practice with micro, meso, and macro level, and see to it that you use the disability budget as a 3% budget, which you are aware, through operationalizing, and see to it that you maintain administrative register or disability register can be maintained in every panchayats. And you can actually have a data of all people with disability in that register, and one copy can be given to the magistrate, the district magistrate, the DM, so that you have a data of all people with disability over there, which will help you to have a census data also, or for other reasons also, because people with disability, if you look at the census data, the census performer, for collecting the data of census 2021, it was a very this thing that they have not they have created a family performer, and they have asked question, are you having a person with disability in your family? That's all, with 4-5 questions. So so what I'm saying is, then what happens to the identity of people with disability? Do you think there is a separate form required for them? Or family ke saath add kar de, as if it's a family member. What about him as identity, as a person with disability? You see, and even after UNCRPD, even everything India is doing, and they're passing laws, but when it comes to collecting the data of marginalized population, whether it's ST, SC, disability, transgender, why the attitude of the government is so different, that they don't want this data. If the data is not there, the budget is not there. The budget is not there, there is no systematic schemes and implementation of the schemes will take place. And that is what is important. It's important. Have you heard of the term activity mapping? Activity mapping. Have you heard this term, activity mapping? Yes or no? It's quite strategic, that's why I'm asking you. Activity mapping?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, activity mapping, even I didn't heard till I started doing the project. So activity mapping is a planning department's work with all the departments at the state level to find out what is happening, how much budget, which district it should give the budget, how much budget, how the budgeting will take place. It takes place only with the activity mapping process. Okay. And this activity mapping process is a very important process of every state. They don't tell you the details of activity mapping. But in 2000, there was a planning commission of India. So they were monitoring all the activity mappings of all the states. So it was easy to, find out. But now we have a different kind of system in place. So what I'm trying to say, that activity mapping is also very important to understand, to plan and the strategies towards social inclusion of people. Now, social inclusion can be practiced in education to make them very empowered in the different, they can become doctors, engineers, pilots, or whatever they want to become in their lives. I'm again, this may be astounding stereotypes, but they can become lawyers, advocates, or media professionals, actors, singers, dancers, whoever they can become. So in education, social inclusion in the sector of education is extremely important, that they are able to socially participate. So which involves, what it involves? It involves making the curriculum accessible, making the online classes accessible, making all the education systems accessible. Social inclusion has to be practiced in health sector, making the vaccination accessible, the COVID treatment accessible, the quarantine accessible, the all facilities of health and distribution of medicines and PHCs accessible, the health facilities, the government hospitals facilities accessible. Social inclusion also had to be practiced in voting. So as a voting rights, how participation of people with disability is important in voting as a citizen of the country. Now, social inclusion also has to be taken place in terms of transportation. Because that is the first fundamental problem of people with disability. They're not able to go from one place to the other. So our transportation system also have to include their design, the structure with the universal design, so that all the vehicles, all the transport, public services, everything is accessible to people with disabilities. I was in Delhi airport and I saw, yes, ma'am, aapko wheelchair chahiye kya? And I said, I was very curious to know. So they said, ma'am, you have to pay 700 for this. We'll do everything. We'll put you, we will take you to the flight, we'll board you to the flight and blah, blah, we'll charge 700. And I was wondering that, how can you think about earning money at the cost of, meaning, is it a thing you have to practice and earn money, or you have to develop an inclusive services for people over here? So, such kind of practices make me think very differently, that, people first, they cannot reach. You create a services, you do a, in terms of quote unquote, you want to do some service to them or you want to benefit them. If you do business out of it, then what is it going on? This is not acceptable. You cannot charge me if my leg is fractured to sit in the aircraft. So, I'm sure now, all the airlines have developed these services after so many petitions in the High Court and Supreme Court. But the point, even Javed Abidi, when he was not allowed to board he was the one who has brought the transformation in India by, filing the landmark judgment of 1996, that the PWD Act 1995 is not implemented, it's only on the paper. So one of the first landmark judgment in the country on disability is given by Javed Avedi versus Union of India, 1998, that how every sector of disability has to implement its laws, policies, program. That is a macro level of social inclusion, which was, I would say, more than social inclusion. It was a justice kind of given by the government to one person with disability who fought for his right because he want to board in the aircraft. Similarly, if you want to board in a local train, you want to board in a public transport, you want to board in an auto rickshaw, you want to board in any kind of a system, how one has to think from inclusion lens, that you have to create a facility. You're not doing a favor, but it's a right and human right of a person with disability. So with this note, thank you so much for the patient listening. I not used much PPT. It was just a conversation with all of you. Just to make you realize that we are not doing a favor on persons with disability by including them in our system, but they have an equal right, and they are they are not different. They're just like us. There's no difference between disabled and non-disabled. I've seen my students getting married to persons with visual impairment, and they are happily, successfully living their lives. And, they are just very, very happy in their own lives. So, I mean.
I missed the last 3 sentences, ma'am.
I'm saying this is.
But someone got married, you said?
Yeah, I said my student with visual impairment, he has fallen, this girl has fallen in love with him, and he got married to her. And I've seen so many visually impaired students getting married, and they are happily settled and they are enjoying their lives. So that is a total inclusion, I would say, it's about, you break all the barriers and you bond in a friendship as a value, as a relationship, whether you are becoming at a personal relationship or it's a friendship as a total core friendship, or or in a professional front, you're becoming friends and colleagues, and or a boss and a employee relationship, or any kind of relationship. At the end of the day, it's an inclusion which you have to practice mentally, psychologically, physically, attitudinally, behaviorally, in order to be an individual of significance and respect the other person as they are, and without creating a mental barrier or a mental mindset of saying you are different. So you have to break that identity or that mindset from your mind that I'm with the persons with disability. My student yesterday was telling me, ma'am, there's a study on siblings, and the siblings feel very awkward when they go out with their sibling with disability. They feel very shy, they feel very awkward, embarrassed. I said, when they feel embarrassed, that means they are believing on the body of the individual. They're not believing on the relationship. They're not believing on the relationship of the individual. So they're thinking from the medical lens that they have having a brother with a body or whatever, disfigured or whatever body they perceive. But if, and I have another student saying that I will marry that guy who will accept my brother as that I am a legal guardian to that brother. So you see the two sides of this, the same, the two different sides, that on one hand, the siblings or the people are feeling awkward while being with the person with disability because they have not accepted them. They have not allowed themselves to participate with them, neither they allowed the person with disability to participate with them. On the other hand, you see that the sibling says that I will leave engineering and I will do disability studies course because my brother is a cerebral palsy, and I want to be a legal guardian to my brother, and I want to be a legal guardian to my brother, and I will live my I will I will marry the person who will allow me to accept this my brother as a legal guardian of my brother. So the point I'm making is it's about attitudes. It's about being accepting the other person. It's about being an open-minded person at the end of the day. It's about being emancipatory yourself. It's about being compassionate and just a natural individual, as any other individual yourself, in order to allow others to grow, to allow others to participate. And if you believe in that, I'm sure your actions will also translate that, your behavior will also translate that, and you will be an empowered professional, and you will empower others to participate and live a happy life ahead. So thank you so much, NCPEDP. I'm thankful to Arman and Akshay for inviting me for the lecture.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think if there are any questions, we can quickly take a couple of questions and then we can wind up the session. Anyone from the candidates who have any questions, please go ahead.
I think they're getting late for dinner.
Yeah, I guess.
Right.
All right, then I'll conclude
Thank
the
you so
session.
much. I've kept my session very simple and I hope you understood.
I believe, ma'am, that students have benefited from it. So, ma'am, as you know, this is the last lecture of this certificate course. And, I'm very, very, very thankful to you and to all the resource persons who have been supporting us for the certificate course. A big thank you to Preeti ji and Arun ji, Manisha ji, Saurabh ji, for, otherwise without them, this course couldn't have been completed at all. So they have been cooperating us, managing the timelines and everything. So thank you so much to both of you, Arun sir and Preeti ji. Thanks to all the students. Thank you from the CDRT team, all the moderators, Devanshi, Siji, Astha. I don't remember all the names, but thank you so much for being there and just moderating the sessions for us. Thanks to all the participants. I hope the course have added some value to you all. And I hope that, similar courses in future will come and you guys will be a part of it. And, just a small message from my side. Why I think I started this course and I asked Arman sir to go ahead with it and Someshwar sir to run this course is disability is a subject that as a student we have never studied. We don't know disability as a subject and we have never been taught of it. Neither our teachers have spoken about it, neither our parents have spoken about it the way it should have been. So, and I felt this need at a very early stage during my graduation that this should be taken up and it should be, discussed as a subject of academics. It should be a part of main curriculum. It should be discussed the way we discuss disaster management in our colleges and in our schools. It should be discussed the way we talk about human rights in our colleges. So this is what the need was, and this is what I felt. This is why we felt that it is important, and I am sure and I am hopeful that we have fulfilled our purpose from our side, and I hope that you will take it forward from your side, and many more students will benefit from it in the upcoming such certificate courses like this. So thank you so much, everyone. Your instructions for assignments and final exams and other things will follow soon on your emails and on your WhatsApp groups. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you again. Thank you, Preeti ji.
Do you think it's okay?
Sorry, ma'am.
Can we have a group picture with them?
We can definitely have. All those who can please turn on their cameras, please do it. We can have a final picture for the last lecture. Arunji, can you come on camera, please?
So wonderful to see you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys. It's first time that I'm actually seeing you all. So thank you so much. Looking forward to connect with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, send me the picture later. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Preeti ji. Thank you.
Thank you.